Okay, welcome back. So this video is going to be all about what is a digital audio workstation. This is pronounced DAW and or DAW. All means the same thing. And basically, it's a software that lets you mix, record, edit. You can produce music, other kinds of audio like podcasts or sound effects, all on your computer. Think of it as a virtual studio where you can arrange and manipulate sound and recordings, instruments, effects, without needing any physical equipment like mixers or tape recorders. How is a DAW used? So here are some basic vocabulary words. Recording. So you can go record directly into your software using a microphone or on our phones. We'll have that microphone. Or you can use virtual instruments. Now, this is talking about MIDI. Virtual instruments can be drums or keyboards, etc. Now, that is something we are going to put on our invisible shelf and revisit later, but it's pretty neat. Editing, once you've got your audio recorded and into your DAW, you can cut it, you can copy it, you can paste it, you can move things around, you can adjust volume, you can pan things, which means moving it left or right. You can fix issues, you can fix timing issues, pitch, speed, basically you name it, all kinds of audio tools to allow you to manipulate the audio itself. Mixing is another term. So essentially, you can combine different sounds, whether it's vocals, guitars, drums, and then you can adjust how loud or soft each sound is. You can add effects like a chorus effect or a doubler or reverb. Again, all these terms, if they're foreign, we'll get back to it. Echo, that's a good one. I think we all know what an echo sounds like. And then also making things sound like they fit together in this virtual spatial realm. And then mastering is the last step in the process. This is your final step in preparing the audio to make it sound polished. Make sure that levels are balanced when played on different devices, and that sort of thing. So those are 4 really important terminology terms that you should know, and that's recording, editing, mixing, and mastering. Those are the steps of audio production. So what's the big deal, right? What's the big deal with digital and digital audio workstations? Well, I think it's important to look at the history of how we used to record sound. Now, back in the way back days, they used to actually use wax cylinders with the stylus that it's the most bizarre thing. It would capture the sound wave, and then we were able to reproduce that with what you would recognize as sort of an old-timey record player. It had the big weird horn type thing on it, and it was really the first audio playback device that existed. Incredibly expensive, and not many people had it. So yeah, back to tape. So we started there. Later on, we moved to tape, which is a physical medium, meaning tangibility. You can hold it in your hands. You'd need a physical recorder of sorts. And if you wanted to make changes, you physically had to cut, which was called splicing the tape, and then you would take out the sections that you didn't want, and then you would literally physically move those sections of tape together, and then use a special kind of tape to tape the tape. Wow, that's getting confusing, back together. So it was incredibly time consuming. If you can only imagine sitting there, cutting up these tapes, these layers, marking them, and then playing that back and then having to do that again. Or what if you messed up? Very destructive and incredibly expensive. So yeah, if you messed up, you had to either completely re-record everything. So can you imagine getting the best take of your life on a vocal track or a guitar track and then going to edit it and it just being gone. I can't. So, yeah, it's not exactly, there's no undo, right? There's no Command Z. There's no Command S to save your tracks. Incredibly destructive. So what's the big advancement? Why is a DAW so important, right? So flexibility and ease is a big one. You can work quickly and easily, especially with features like undo and redo. It is non-destructive editing, meaning you can go back in time to completely undo something you had done or to fix a mistake. And likewise, you can move forward in time too if you've moved backwards, if that makes sense. Probably not. But again, the idea is that we're not physically having to cut tape and splice tape. No matter what we do in our DAW and Reaper, as long as we're saving our work along the way, nothing is permanent. And this is such a relief, right? Because this allows not only for faster editing, and that sort of thing, but also it allows us a huge world of like exploration, right? So as we're learning some of these plugins and software things and effects, like I mentioned before, reverb or echo or something of that nature, as we're experimenting with those tools, there's a bunch of knobs and buttons and probably even words we don't understand. This allows us to just have a playground with it, right? We can go nuts. We can take the EQ and bring up a frequency way up here and be like, what does that sound like? And then alternatively, not alternative really, but so we can play around, right? So it's a sort of playground that allows us to experiment. So yeah, flexibility and ease. It's instant editing. That's the main key, right? It's instant. There's no waiting around. I can record and instantly start editing. I can instantly start mixing and I can instantly start mastering. There's no waiting of time. There's no messing up and having to redo everything, yada, yada, yada. There's unlimited tracks. So like with tapes, you had a limited number of tracks. And so like what we call multi-recording sessions is if I'm recording an entire band and let's say it's sort of a live setting, and that means I want to record each player at once. So I've got a vocalist, a guitarist, a bassist, and even a drummer that has multiple mics. If I want, I can set up that many individual tracks and record them at the same time. There were not unlimited tracks, if you can only imagine when working with tape. So basically, the DAW can handle as many tracks as your computer can handle, right? And that turns into you looking at your CPU power, your processing power, and that's essentially the strength of your computer or the speed at which it can talk. That's why using something like an iPad or even a Chromebook wouldn't work, because your computer needs the processing power so that your DAW itself, that it can communicate and you aren't running into errors and this, that, and the other. So yeah, and affordability. My goodness, we still have recording studios and they are still magical and glorious. They have all the best gear. They even have old, tube amps and that sort of thing, which, so nowadays everything is digital, right? We have like computer chips and small components. Back in the day, they literally used tubes within their amps. And I'm not going to even try to explain because I don't completely understand myself how that works, but it creates a sort of warm sound that musicians still seek after. And so to this day, we still go to recording studios, right? You get the professional engineer, you get the space. An acoustically treated environment is huge. So as you're recording, we'll go over some techniques later on how to do this, but you want a quiet environment. You don't want natural reverb or echo bouncing off your walls. You want it to be as quiet as humanly possible, and a recording studio offers that. among other things. So I'm not downsizing the need for recording studios. What I'm saying is, essentially you get a DAW like Reaper, you get an audio interface, a microphone, and you've created your own studio in your own home. And that's a big deal. Um, Beyond that, digital quality, it can be stored and transferred or shared with zero loss of quality, as opposed to tape, which will eventually degrade over time. So if you were to make a copy of an original, um, let's say a musical track on tape, and then each time you copied it, the quality of the mix and the recording itself would start to get bad. It would start to become, unusable. And that's not the case with digital. So yeah, in short, the DAW, it's a game changer because it gives artists and producers more control and freedom, creative options without the need of expensive, bulky equipment. You're basically turning your computer into that professional grade recording studio. Um, One of the coolest things about digital audio in my mind is, even with tape, with every new advancement where, things become more affordable, then allows us to share music all over the place, So with that first phono device, right, that played on a wax cylinder, people weren't able to share that music necessarily. Not many people had the device to play it on, let alone UPS to send it anywhere. And so nowadays, then we got to tapes, right? So then more people were able to start affording tape players, and tapes were easily produced, and so that they could be sent out over the country, and then digital happened, right? CDs, and even easier, more affordable. And now with the advent of like Spotify and streaming, we can share audio with somebody in Europe, in Africa, and wherever we wanted to share music with somebody instantly, we can do that. And not just music, all art. And I think that's a really cool thing. So I didn't go over necessarily a lot of the types of equipment that can be used to record sound, to playback sound. This is considered a transducer, anything that captures audio, then turns it into digital. We're taking analog into digital, versus speakers or headphones, which is also a transducer, but then it reverts it back into a way that we can hear it. Um, that was probably way more confusing than it needed to be. But later on, when we get more into our recording, that's when I'm really going to dive into some different types of microphones, as well as devices that we use to connect their audio interfaces, connect our mics to the audio interface, as well as, that same interface we use to connect different speakers or things for playback. But for now, I think that gets really confusing. And since we're not recording anything yet, and we really just want to get our hands dirty with Reaper and the software itself, this next video is incredibly important. I'm going to show you how to download Reaper and get it installed. Likewise, there is going to be a link. It's a zip file that I'm going to show you how to import into Reaper. And again, I think I mentioned this last video, but it's preferences that it's ease of use, workflow, and keeps us all on the same page. But I'm also going to talk about how to save your work correctly. So we will create specific folders where things go so we can easily find them, because I have to tell you, it gets incredibly confusing when you have not only WAV files, which are the ones we're looking for, but then you have things .rpp, which are session files, et cetera, et cetera. Things get very bogged down and hard to find things. And oftentimes students will end up uploading the wrong files that I cannot hear or grade or play back. And So really, really pay attention to this. I'm also going to talk about how to export those correctly. It's called rendering and Reaper. You'll hear words like rendering, export, bouncing, bounce out your audio into a stereo, track. And again, I'll get more in depth and walk you through those things in the next video. But this is perhaps some of the most boring aspects of this class in terms of like, oh, I'm having to walk through settings and this, that, and the other. But if you don't get this part right, it is going to make your life a nightmare. It's certainly did mine until I took the time to learn correctly all of these steps, as well as how to label things. It's hugely important to be very specific about how you're labeling tracks, and it's really easy to go version A, version B, version blah, blah, blah. And then again, maybe not this year, but when you go down the road and you're trying to build a portfolio, or you're like, oh my gosh, I had this one really cool mix or recording I did back in 2023, or whatever, you can easily start to find these things. And yeah, so that's enough preaching about that for now. But yes, get ready. Have your computers ready. Be in a place where you can watch and follow along, and really get this stuff dialed in. It again. This is really important for your success in this class. So we'll see you in the next video.